Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, and welcome back to another full card breakdown, this time for UFC Vegas 84 and the very first card of 2024. Yep, new year, new me, really not too much. Same video, but after a few weeks off, I think the excitement level is off the charts, and I'm just ready to break down some fights. As always, we're going to cover every single card. This time there's 12 of them from a DraftKings and a betting perspective. All should be timestamped down below, and if you want to fast forward to the first fight of the night, go for it. I don't blame you. I want to talk about fights too, but I want to mention one thing before we do so. That is the UFC Ironman. I host it every single year. If you follow me on Twitter, I bet you're already sick of me talking about it. But what it is a DraftKings contest that is the whole 2024 calendar year. All you do is you enter one DraftKings lineup each week in a contest that I create, and you collect Ironman points. Top 25% of people get points. The closer to the top, the more points you get, and you collect these points the entire year. At the end of the year, the top 10% of people get paid out part of the prize pool, and it's a good way of having an investment on every single card this year. I've played in it for a few years now. It's my third year running it, but I've played in it more than that, and it's a good group of people, a ton of fun. I highly recommend it. If you have any questions, please DM me on Twitter at GamblesGordo, or ask me any questions in the comment section down below. With that out of the way, let's break down these 12 fights. Hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel. Let's do this. The very first fight of 2024 will be the 9-1 Joshua Van versus the 13-6 Felipe Bunes. A very, very fun fight to kick us off, and a flyweight bout that I'm actually really looking forward to. Maybe it's the excitement of being on for so long, but this is one I do think has a ton of potential to not only be entertaining, but be a very pivotal fight on DraftKings. Joshua Van is the more known commodity here. At only 22 years old, this guy has really made a name for himself due to his high volume, his incredible combinations on the feet, and his ability to pressure forward. I mean, he landed a ton of strikes in that last matchup, even though he didn't really get started in that second round. He showed incredible cardio, incredible ability to mix up to the body. His technicality is there, and his determination to do well. He can also take a shot, and although he hasn't been tested too much on the ground, he has shown that he can compete with decent physicality, and he looks to have a very, very high ceiling. His opponent, Bunes, is a bit different to figure out. I mean, he's 13-6. He looks to be a primary grappler with some decent combination of the feet and to be a well-rounded prospect. He's a little bit old to be a flyweight here making his debut, but nonetheless, he does have a decent skill set to have some success in this division. Although he has good grappling and decent striking, I do think there are holes in his game. He is a bit lower volume, and he doesn't really have the best wrestling to get it down to the mat. But on the mat, I do think he's going to be the superior grappler here. And on the feet, although he has lower volume, does have some decent power and combinations in his own regard. Durabilities-wise, I think both these guys are incredibly durable. Bunes is a guy who I think can take a lot of damage, and he might have to endure lots of it in this matchup here. And I think that although both these guys have a very, very good stylistic matchup for each other, there are fighters who are going to dominate different areas. On the feet, Van is going to have way more volume, way more activity, probably way better optics in the feet as well, because he throws heavy with a ton of combinations, not only to the head, but to the body as well. On the mat, I do think the advantage goes to Bunes, but he doesn't have that wrestling I want to see from him in order to have the success to take Joshua Van down. If it's on the mat, I think Bunes can have some success, and I do think there is a world where he's able to get a submission or some ground control time. But at the end of the day, when I'm talking about who I think wins this fight, I'm going to have to pick Joshua Van. Due to the better striking on the feet and due to him having good enough takedown defense to really defend the subpar wrestling of Felipe Bunes. So give me the 22-year-old here in Van, better combination, better striker in general, and someone who I think is going to take over as the fight goes on. He builds, so he may lose that first round, but once he gets going, that technicality is there, that precision, the diversity of attacks. I really love this guy on the feet, and he should be able to keep it there and either get a late finish or a dominant decision victory. DraftKings-wise, it is a fun one, and because of that activity, he scored 106 last time in a decision win, where he landed 165 strikes. In this one here, I think he's able to land just as much, and if he's able to get off on his game a bit sooner, this could be 200 strikes, this could be 110, 115 points. The ceiling is there for Van. Additionally, although Bunes is extremely tough on the feet, I mean, with the volume coming your way, you're going to have to be tough, and I wouldn't be surprised if they finish from Van. I do think at 8.8K, he is a very, very reliable option to have at this price range. You need someone looking to target. Although I'm talking all this good about Van, Bunes 7.4K, in my eyes, his path to victory involves grappling. I don't think there's a world where Van fights a slow-paced fight, so it's going to be a quick, opportunistic finish for Bunes if he does win, and I don't say that happen all the time, but when he does, it does score very well. The ceiling is there for Bunes, so I will be rostering some of him, but he won't be my highest owned underdog just because I don't think he wins too often, but when he does win, he should score very well. Either way, super fun fight to get the year started. Keep it rolling at 155 with the 6-0 Tom Nolan and the 13-5 Nicolas Motta. Motta is the more known commodity of the two. He's actually 1-2-1 inside the UFC, should be 1-3, and he is a guy who typically has that killer to be killed mentality. extremely powerful individually. Watch from the regional scene and you see all these knockouts come to fruition, even against Cameron Van Camp there. This guy has power. But he also has the ability to be knocked out. He doesn't have the most volume, he doesn't have the best striking defense, and his chin is certainly questionable. I mean, he was knocked out by Miller, knocked out brutally by Manuel Torres, and even finished and dominated on the mat by someone in Ogden who isn't known to be a prolific finisher. Simply put, Motta is a KO or bust type of guy. He has the power to knock out anybody, but without that, he's not going to win minutes. He's not going to have much success in the ground game, and he can be out-volumed as well as out-grappled. You add in the chin there, it's not really a good recipe for success for Nicolas Motta. Flip side of things, Tom Nolan is a really nice frame for the division. It sounded a bit weird when I said it that way, but he is a guy who has a ton of talent, he is very aggressive, and he is super fun to watch. Being 6'3" at 155, this is a really good frame, and although he has this length, he has this technicality, he goes out there, he brawls, he pushes forward. He wants to be in close, he wants to be in the clinch. He's shown a decent ability to mix it up on the ground. But really, that striking is powerful. He's looking for the finish at all times, and he is a very, very dangerous striker at 6-0 in this division. This fight's pretty simple for me. It's who's going to get off on their punches first. I don't think that at 6-0, Tom Nolan is necessarily someone who I want to get behind too often. Unproven, we haven't really seen his ground game too much. He comes in reckless with his chin up high, so I do think he can be countered and hit. But he's facing someone where he's going to have the height and reach advantage, the size advantage, the chin advantage, in my opinion, and have all these abilities to beat Nicolas Motta in this matchup. And although I do think that his aggressiveness is going to cost him one day, if he's able to land on Motta first, he should be the finisher here, and he is going to be my pick to win just because he has more avenues of getting it done. Now, am I going to go out there, parlay or play Nolan at minus 300? Probably not, because like I said, he rushes in, and Motta's path to victory all the time is a one-shot knockout punch. He could do that here. So because of that, although I think Nolan wins this fight, he has more tools to get it done, he is still someone who I'm not too confident in here. I do think Motta could catch him, and for that reason, it makes it for a phenomenal fight on DraftKings. This fight is like minus 1,000 not to go the distance, and rightfully so. Motta's killer to be killed, and with that killer instinct of Tom Nolan, I do think he's going to go out there, and this should be a round one finisher either side. I side towards Nolan because I do think he's able to be the forward pressure. We've seen Motta knocked out before, so at 9.2K, his ceiling is there, quick win bonus, all this opportunity, but let's talk about Motta. He is the GPP punt play of the week. He is someone who, if he wins, I do believe it comes in a round one form of knockout, the similar way he did to Cameron Van Camp where he scored 110. So at 7K, his path to victory is a first round knockout. I don't think he gets it all the time, but if he's going to win, that's how he's going to do it, and it's going to score very well in the process. So give me this fight on DraftKings, picking Nolan, but not trusting him and his bullish style against someone who does have power in Motta, although Nolan does have more tools to get it done. We'll keep this next one short here. At 145, 11-2, John Silva versus the 16-8 Weston Wilson. Weston Wilson is not the finest of UFC fighters, a guy who's pretty chinny, doesn't have the best record here. One fight in the UFC where he got absolutely demolished by Joannis and Brito. That fight, scarring. I mean, wow, welcome to the UFC. Here's Joannis and Brito. Let's add that to your knockout loss column. John Silva coming off of the Contender Series, not the most prolific fighter, not the biggest hype train, but he's got a good manager because this matchup here really favors him. John Silva is a guy with some decent durability, a ton of different variety of strikes, and a ton of power. He is a finisher by trade, and he gets someone in here, in Weston Wilson, who has been finished in 6 of his losses. Not only has Wilson fought really questionable level of competition, but he can be hit. His striking is definitely not there, and although his ground game is decent, doesn't really have the wrestling to get it there, I do think there are way better fighters in the UFC, and this is a fight that John Silva should win. Now, the price tag is a bit outrageous, especially considering that, John Silva's unproven, the ground game of Wilson might even be better, but when it comes to durability, when it comes to striking, when it comes to just minute winning on the feet, it's John Silva all day, and I do think Silva goes out there and gets a finish. Am I going out there and paying it's minus 1,000? No, I'm not going to do that, all right? He's going to go out there. He should win. The price tag's a bit outrageous, but that's what happens when you're in a fight for 3 weeks, right? Instead, give me Silva on DraftKings, 9.6K, not the prettiest of salaries, but if we talk about dogs you like and you can afford him, Silva should win this fight in the first round a lot of times. I mean, Brady was able to go out there and dismantle Wilson, and I do think Silva's able to do the same thing. I do think this fight ends one way or the other. Whether it be Silva knock him out early on with that questionable chin and durability that I anticipate here, or whether it be Wilson maybe locking up a questionable sub, which is a very minimal outcome, but probably the path to victory for Wilson. It's going to score well either way. I just heavily lean towards the side of Silva. He'll likely be chalked this week for good reason. The better fighter of the two, the more trustworthy fighter of the two, and someone who I think is going to have a clear striking advantage here. to which he'll probably exploit to get a finish victory. Next up, 11-0, Farid Basharat versus the 19-3 Taylor Lapilus. Super fun fight. And both these guys are extremely technical. Farid Basharat, undefeated, good ability to mix it up on the ground as well. Solid wrestling, solid striking, very well-rounded prospect. And his record indicates that. Lapilus, 19-3, French prospect, 4-1 inside the UFC in his second stint here, and someone who is also very well-rounded. Very physical, maybe a slower-paced fighter, which got him cut the first time, but is someone who knows what it takes to win. I mean, he has the ability to go out there, win minutes, has a very, very tough style to go out there and dismantle because he's very technically sound, very good at in and out movement, and has a really good takedown defense against the cage here. When it comes to this line, I understand it, right? Like, Basharat is someone who is the more proven name, better to watch, undefeated. You're paying a tax for the Basharat name. And I think that if it comes down to a judge's scorecards, they'll probably go towards Basharat. But this line's wide. If we're comparing skill sets and saying that Basharat's like 70% implied, I disagree, because Basharat's going to be facing his toughest test to date, and someone in Lapilus who will defend the takedowns, who will have the ability to go out there and win minutes, and is a very, very good manager of the octagon to go out there and score points. Maybe not the most entertaining style, but one that could portray well to winning fights here. And I do think Lapilus might have a much better chance than the line implies. I think that, like I said, in a close fight, they'll probably give it to Basharat, but I don't think Basharat's going to run away with it. I think it's going to be very, very close, and one where I would be scared holding a Basharat ticket at this much juice. For that reason, and how slow Lapilus likes to fight here, and considering how durable both these fighters are, complete pass fight for me on DraftKings. Basharat historically scores decent, scoring 111 against Rodriguez, but against a guy who's so hard to take down in Lapilus, against a guy who prefers to fight at a slow pace, this isn't one I anticipate ending too often or scoring too well in the process. Pass me on DraftKings. If you're looking for a cash underdog, considering I do think it goes all 15, Lapilus could be that guy. I mean, he would have scored 34 last time in a decision loss. That's not great. Not the historically best DraftKings scorer, but someone who I think survived 15 minutes. The more I talk about it, maybe not the best cash option, but someone who I do think is able to be a live underdog on the money line. Maybe if you want to go out there, take the plus 3.5 points, because they could rob Lapilus and give it to Basharat to keep him undefeated here. Either way, extremely close fight between two really good opponents here. Excited to see this technical battle go down. It just might not be the most attractive, let's put it that way. Next up, we have the 8-1 Marcus McGhee versus the 7-3 Gaston Bolanos. One of my favorite fights on the card, and an extremely easy one to break down. A lot of people see this Marcus McGhee name. He is hyped up, 2-0 inside the UFC, 2 finish wins. People like him. And I get it. He's fun to watch, very good combinations, very opportunistic grappler as well. He has some good skills. But to me, this is a bit of an overreaction to someone who, although he's getting finishes, Journey Newsom and GP Bays, it's a very interesting look here to make such a big favorite. Gaston Bolanos, I completely agree, has his flaws. I mean, he's not perfect. 3 losses before getting to the UFC, someone who has been taken down, controlled, and dominated on the mat. That really exemplifies what he is. He's a kickboxer. He's not a primary grappler. He is someone who in his 3 losses was subbed twice and dominated en route to a decision on the mat. What Bolanos is a very, very technical kickboxer. He's fought in many organizations across the globe, someone who is very, very talented in doing so. And you watch the tape and you can see this guy has an extremely good fundamental knowledge of striking. And I think he is going to be the most dangerous striker that McGhee has fought so far, making this line a bit crazy, right? Because if we go out there and we say, all right, Bolanos is against a grappler, he's plus 200 because of it. I agree. I think grapplers can go out there and take care of Bolanos because he does have that hole in the game. But is McGhee a primary grappler? He's not. He's a guy who prefers to strike, who grapples opportunistically, but that isn't his first intention. And I do think this is going to be a stand-up affair for a majority of the fight. And for that reason, I might have to take the dog shot here on Gaston Bolanos, because I think at range, Bolanos is the better striker of the two. He's the more experienced. I think he can make reads and win the fight from that regard. And I do think this line is a bit wide. Could McGhee have more activity and mix it in along the clinch and score well that way? Potentially. And I'm not saying that Bolanos is a lock here, but I'm saying in a striking affair to which I predict it to be, Bolanos is going to be a live underdog. Now, could McGhee go out there, watch the tape, shoot takedowns, and score very well because of it? 100%, and that's the worry here, but I've never seen him do that before. I've never seen him be a grappler first mentality, so until I see that, this fight to me is going to be kickboxing fair, and due to the tape I've watched, Bolanos is a very, very live underdog. On DraftKings, again, both these guys have higher ceilings, right? You have the striking of Bolanos making him a very live underdog at 7.1, and if McGhee fights his best ability and he grapples, he could score very well in the process. But like I said, if we're going to have a 15-minute kickboxing affair, that's not going to score great. And that's kind of how I see this one going down. Is it's going to be another win for Bolanos, like the last one, where he scored 64 points in a decision. Questionable DraftKings fights to this one. I think there are many better fights to target on this slate, which is why I'm not going to get it too often, but the ceiling is definitely there for both fighters, so I do not discredit you if you want to go there in larger tournaments. Fun fight. I'm going to pick the dog here due to it being a potential striking affair due to recency bias and the line being off, but I get the path to victory for McGhee if you just do decide to side with him. Decide with him. There you go. Next fight, you have the 11-6 Matthew Semelsberger versus the 10-4 Preston Parsons. A very, very fun match. Actually, this one may be one of the most entertaining ones of the card because it is the guy with a ton of knockdowns, Matthew Semelsberger, versus a pressure-oriented fun fighter here in Preston Parsons. Semelsberger has had a ton of knockdowns in the UFC. Maybe that shows his lack of finishing instinct, but a guy with a ton of power in his hands. There's a guy in Parsons who is just non-stop relentless takedowns. In fact, if we take it even a step further, this could be minutes versus moment winner, because I do think that both of these guys' weaknesses play in each other's strengths, right? The better moment winner with more power is Semelsberger. And we've seen Parsons knocked out. We've seen him knocked down. The power and knockout opportunity is there for Semelsberger. But we've also seen Semelsberger controlled and out-volumed. And the minute winner in this case here is Parsons. And I do think that if Parsons gets off in his game plan, he can out-volume and out-grapple Semelsberger to a win here. So with that being said, this is a very closely contested matchup. Who gets off in their game plan more? Now, I am a wrestler first type of guy, especially being a DraftKings player. Like, I do like myself Preston Parsons, but I'm fully aware of the risk I'm taking by backing him. Parsons was able to go out there, shoot a ton of takedowns, have a ton of control time, attempt a ton of submissions against someone elder, and I do think he is going to be the more proactive guy, eliminating the space from Semelsberger and being able to have some success that way. We always talk about Semelsberger's power, but really, he's going out there and doing that against Martin Sano, Jason Witt, Carlton Minus. Like, he has won against a very low level of competition. Although the power's real and he could get a knockout here, does he win a decision a lot of the time? If he doesn't find that KO shot, can he out-grapple Parsons? I don't think so, so I'm going to side with the underdog here, again, in Preston's Parsons. Now, DraftKings-wise, both these guys are extremely viable because Semelsberger has KO power and Parsons has 7-8 takedown upside. So I'm going to have both sides. But in a close 50-50 fight, maybe 55-45% fight here, gun to my head, I'm going to go with the guy who I think is more active, who is going to be winning the ground exchanges and looking to bring this fight to an area where he excels in. I'm going to trust Preston Parsons. Close fight, so I don't discredit anybody going the other ways, but give me Parsons, give me the wrestler, and I do think he does dominate in those high-volume exchanges. Now, if this does play out in the feet, Semelsberger should be able to take it, but I think Parsons is going to shoot early and often and score well in DraftKings from that regard. Because of that, at 7.8K, one of my favorite underdogs this week, I do think he has a ton of upside to score well. Scored 108 against Elder. Can see him do the same thing here at 7.8K. A good option this week. Next up, second biggest favorite on the card, 10-1, Waldo Cortes-Acosta, 34-22, Andre Arlovski. Keeping this one short. Arlovski's getting up there in age, oldest fighter in the UFC, I believe, facing a young, powerful, up-and-coming prospect here. If the durability of Arlovski is gone, then this could be a short night at the office for Cortes-Acosta, who does throw with fighting intention, who is a very well-versed fighter and durable in his own right. And although I want to cheer for Arlovski, it's hard for me to find a path to victory. The bigger, stronger of the two is going to be Cortes-Acosta. The more active striker, Cortes-Acosta. More durable is going to be Cortes-Acosta. Waldo just has it all in this matchup, and it's hard for me to find an avenue for Arlovski. The question then becomes, does Cortes-Acosta pay off his salary at 9.5K? I mean, he scored 106 last time against Bresky. Could be a similar fight here where he's able to do that, but he's also the same guy who scored 60 in a decision win against Vandera, or even 90 against Sherman. He isn't always the highest scoring fighter, and for that reason, I'm tentative to play him at 9.5K when we do have fights that are minus 1,000 to end us at the distance. But considering the state that we've seen Arlovski in, the declining chin, the declining durability, the declining really willingness to exchange, the pick is Waldo, and I do think he is a very, very viable play this week. Both Silva and Waldo up top are two guys who I think have first-round finish upside at a very high clip. So they're going to be two guys that's going to be really hard to decide on which I like more. Wish I could pick Arlovski, but really can't here. Give me Waldo. Unfortunately, let's just make it harmless for the veteran and legend in Arlovski. Well, this next one won't be harmless, though. The 12-5 Phil Hawes versus the 10-1 Bruno Ferreira. Both guys have burnt me in the past. Both guys are not trustworthy. So for me to have been burned by them is just a fault on my end. I shouldn't be doing that. Shouldn't be trusting them. But Phil Hawes, man, a ton of skill, no durability. I'm sure you've heard it a million times this week. I mean, this guy is the epitome of a ton of talent, but no chin. I mean, he's got power in his hands, incredible wrestling, incredible defensive wrestling as well, a good ability to mix it up on the mat. And when he's facing guys who can't finish him, like a Duran Win, like a Jacob Malkoun, this guy's on top of the world. But you hit him once, and man, this guy can crumble. Alaskarov did it, crumbled him early in that first round. Curtis crumbled him in the first round. Dolidze crumbled him in the first round. The chin is not there. There's also that knockout on Dana White Contender Series to Marquez. I mean, the skill is there, the chin is not. Bruno Ferreira is just a guy with incredible power. That's all he is. He is a powerful guy. And when it comes down to moment versus minute winner here is Hawes. And I think he's a better fighter in general. But really, Ferreira's a guy who knocked out RoboCop, another guy who's questionably chin. Like, what he does is find the off switch, and he could easily do that to Phil Hayes, which makes this fight super, super tough to judge. Is Ferreira the most durable guy in his own right? No, he was knocked out by Rizabiev his last time. Both these guys have their chin deficiencies. I just think that Hayes has been more highlighted, and I do think Ferreira throws the fight ending intention. When it comes down to picking a winner in this one, it's a toss-up. Whose chin cracks first is really the question, but skill for skill, if both these guys had Holloway's chin, it's Phil Hawes all day. He's the better grappler of the two, better cardio of the two, in my opinion, better technical striking, better volume. He is the overall better fighter. But we've seen his chin cracked. It's so hard to trust him at this point of his career and what we've seen from him. So give me Phil Hayes with no confidence. DraftKings-wise, though, although this is a close 50-50 fight, you kind of want to get it right. I mean, both these guys could be knocked out in the first round, allowing for the winner to score very well. And if that's the case, if you're telling me here to pick one of them, I'll pick Phil Hayes at an underdog price tag of 7.9K. Like I said, better minute winner, more ability to get it done in my opinion. So hard to trust him and click on his name, but if you have to choose one of these winners, he is who I would pick here. I'd also have a ton of ownership of Ferreira due to his path to victory. Should be a very close competitive fight where the loser is going to score 0, but considering the upside both these guys have in GPP, I will be getting to both of them. However, can't believe I'm saying this in 2024, but the pick is going to be Phil Hawes. Next up, a very technical matchup, 20-4 Ricky Simón, 13-2 Mario Bautista. I love Bautista because I love his fight manager. The guy who gets him all these scraps, he's had an incredibly easy strength schedule recently, and he has disposed him accordingly. The one, when he did get a step up against Blackshear, it was an extremely close fight, one where people say he even lost, but Canetti, Lopez, Keller, Perrin, Bautista's got a good manager, and he finally gets a big step up here against Ricky Simón, a guy who was just knocked out by title contender here in Song Yadong. This is an extremely fun matchup. Breaking it down simply, I think the guy with the better striking of the two is Mario Bautista. The better grappler too is going to be Ricky Simón, and due to his heavy wrestling and ability to go out there and break people, such as Jack Shore, I like Ricky Simón in this matchup. Bautista was just in a very, very close match against Guy Blackshear, who was wrestling him as well, but tired down the stretch. Simón doesn't tire. He goes out there, pushes a very, very heavy pace, has beaten Merab Dvalishvili, is a guy who has good wins on his record with a good pace. I do think he's able to go out there and beat Mario Bautista. Now, if Bautista is able to fend off the takedowns and outstrike him on the feet, that's his path to victory. But at what percentage does that happen? At what percentage is Bautista's takedown defense good enough or power good enough to go out there and dispose of Simón? I don't think it's too often. I think this fight is lined perfectly. It's going to be one where I'm picking Ricky Simón to have success here. I don't think it's going to be a slam dunk home run play here, but one where he has the grappling, he has the wrestling, he has the efficiency, he has the minute-winning ability, as well as cardio, to go out there and have a ton of success. And I do think he wins this fight more times than not. And because of that, on DraftKings, a very, very solid play, 8.6K. In his last wins, he scored 111, 106, 98, 131, 106. The guy scores well. Very fun to watch, a ton of takedowns. 59 takedowns in 12 fights. That is almost one away from 5 takedowns per fight. The guy's fun to watch. The guy's very aggressive. I do think he wins this fight more times than not, and is another very good mid-range option. Next up, Jim Miller, UFC legend versus the 23-10 Gabriel Benitez. What a fun fight here too, and a guy who, you look at name value, right? You look at Jim Miller, a guy who should be fighting on UFC 300, a guy who has a most wins UFC history. You would expect this man to be the more watched of the two fighter, and yet you watch the tape, you watch recent events, he may be in a better spot in his career than Gabriel Benitez is right now. That's a super fun matchup, and this is why this fight is so close. 36-17, Jim Miller is past his prime, there's no doubt about it, but he has been getting wins, he has been having success, and really, he has been showing a ton of power and knockout ability. Knocked out Butler last time in 10 seconds. Yes, lost the decision to Hernandez, but hung in there with Hernandez, hung in there with Selecki, and he has not been finished despite his age in a while. He's instead going out there and being the finisher himself. So far in these matchups, in fights that end inside the distance, Miller's winning them all. KO'd Butler, sub-Cerrone, KO'd Motta, KO'd Gonzalez, submitted Roberts, submitted Guida. Like, the guy has finishing ability, and he's getting someone in Benitez who has been finishing his losses. Knocked out in round 1 by Onama in a horrific knockout. Knocked out in round 3 by Correntillo. Lost a decision to Morales. But Gabriel Benitez, although he has had wins in the UFC, come to Charlie Ontiveros, Justin James. Like, these guys are not people who should be in the UFC in the first place. So Benitez is disposing of them accordingly. It makes it for a very interesting dynamic. Both these guys have low strength of schedule. Both these guys are maybe past their prime, but who has more ability to win this fight? And I think it comes down to a really, really close matchup, but one where I'm going to take Jim Miller. And it's crazy for me to say that, but I don't think that he should be an underdog or even or close to it in a spot where he has more finish upside and is a more trustworthy fighter, the two at this point in his career. We've seen him go out there, he'll throw with fighting any intention, and we've seen Benitez be hit. And all this talk about the striking, like, yes, Benitez has leg kicking ability to work the outside, decent jab. Miller's going to throw with more fight ending intention, be the better moment winner, but the ground is his bread and butter. That's where Miller wants to fight. Let's not forget about his ability to mix it up on the ground too. So to me, Miller has more paths, more ability to get it done, and I'm going to pick him here. DraftKings wise though, he's the play here. Although this fight could be close, I do see Benitez's path to victory being more decision based. I mean, Miller has been really tough despite his age. So 8.2K, Miller has more finish equity. I like him here, right? Ability to finish the fight, ability to fight at high pace, only 8.2K. So a guy who I think wins often, having the salary is pretty good. And although he's getting up there in age, I think he gets a quick win and gets on UFC 300. I think that's been the plan here, and I think it's one he's able to execute on. So don't care how old he is. Give me Jim Miller. Should be a fun fight here. Benitez, although a talented guy, a guy who's seen a bit on the decline, and it's crazy when you're being told that you are the more washed fighter than a guy who's got most wins in UFC history here. So interesting matchup. Give me Miller. Should be fun nonetheless. Co-main event time. It is a rematch between the 19-3-1 Matheus Nicolau versus the 19-6 Manel Kape, except for this time the rematch, two fighters in opposite direction. I mean, Manel Kape has lost to Nicolau, but has been on an absolute tear since. Round 1 TKOs over Osborne and Magulov, and then just dominating Dvorak and Dos Santos. I know the Dos Santos fight was fun. Kape still dominated. So 4-fight win streak, on the quest for the top, saying some questionable things in interviews to get those shots at the top, but getting a rematch here against Nicolau, a guy who has had some success as well, but maybe not to the same extent. He has beaten Elliott, Dvorak, and Schnell since that last matchup, but then was just knocked out by Rival in first round. Title challenger, will give it there, but makes for a really fun matchup. In that first bout, we saw that Manel Kape was able to have his moments, but he struggled winning minutes, and Nicolau was able to go out there and be the more active guy. And since then, it kind of turned on the switch in Kape, because he has kind of been a more aggressive fighter, and he's scary when he is so, because he has the ability to go out there, land with fight ending intention, have the ability to mix it up on the ground as well, and be a very, very good moment winner. Now, we always saw him taking down the regional scene, and I do think that is a path for Nicolau here, but not one that I would anticipate happening too often. I instead think Kape has the physicality, the power, and really the knockout upside to win this fight at a high clip, and if he comes out here aggressive, should have a very, very good chance of realizing his expensive salary here. Nicolau, I still think he's a terrific fighter. He's not someone to be counted out at all, considering how well-rounded he is, how good he is to mix it up on the ground, and how he won last time. But I do think that last loss was more so a defunct on the Kape side, where he didn't fight to the best of ability, started slow, and for that reason, Kape should be favored here. I agree with the line. Give me Manel Kape. Now, DraftKings-wise, we think it interesting is because, yes, Nicolau was just knocked out early. Kape does have finish upside. That path to victory is certainly there, but last time we saw a very, very close decision. If this fight happens all 15 again, does it outscore all these high-scoring fights like Nolan Motta or Silva Weston or Van Bunes, Simon Bautista, Semelsberger Parsons? Like, there are so many high-scoring matchups on this card. How often do you get to Manel Kape? Because yes, that round one upside is there, but would you be surprised if this goes all 15? Because I certainly wouldn't. So I think Kape has more upside of the two on DraftKings just because he has that first round upside. But really, I don't think it's as certain of a banger or a fight-ending matchup than a Semelsberger Parsons, Ferreira Hayes, Nolan Motta, right? So with all the high scoring fights, although I do like Kape here, not getting to him too often, he is my pick to win. I do think he gets his revenge here and continues to sail for the top. Just make sure to take that microphone away from him in the post-fight interview. And last but not least, another rematch, the 18-1-1 Magomed Ankalaev versus the 21-7 Johnny Walker. Fun fight, main event, one where it ended controversially last time, but one where I still think Ankalaev has the advantages. Johnny Walker, physical specimen, someone who I love to watch, Love that fake out flying knee last time, or if he's not landing that fight-ending blow, he's going to lose minutes here. He's going to be the inferior wrestler. He is the chinnier of the two fighters, in my opinion, and I do think Ankalaev has more paths going to get done. I do think that Ankalaev is going to be the A-side here, and for that reason, he's made a pick to win, and he is a large favorite because of that. Walker has been rocked. He can be taken down, and we saw that even though he faked being hurt last time, he was taken down immediately. Ankalaev was able to get his back, establish position, and score well because of it. Yes, a controversial ending, but still a guy who has fight-ending intention in his own right, is a good technical striker on the feet, as well as having a wrestling advantage. If he uses that wrestling, could score a lot better or lead to a much more dominant performance, but either way, a guy who should win this matchup. Walker, I'm not counting him out. Extremely explosive. I love watching him fight, but considering he started to fight slower, or I don't think he has the advantage in the technicality or wrestling here, his path to victory is rooted in a KO finish, something that we haven't seen happen on Ankalaev at all. So it's hard for me to count on Walker's explosiveness to get him this win, although I do think anyone's liable to win a fight. Walker has that out capability, not something I'm trusting in all too often. So give me Ankalaev, no hot take there. I do think he's able to go out there and have some success. I want to get to Ankalaev in a 5-rounder. I do think he has an ability to go out there and have a decent ceiling with takedown upside, but am I really playing him over on Nolan or a Waldo Cortes-Acosta or John Silva? This might be a matchup where I don't get to the main event as often as I usually do. Of course, I'll get to him in cash. Of course, I'll get to him in high portfolio tournaments, but I wouldn't be opposed to going elsewhere considering the high ceilings we have around him. Well, that's going to do it for us here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Let me quickly give you my quick picks. I'm taking Joshua Van to get the night started. I'm taking Tom Nolan, even though I'm not parlaying that price tag. John Silva, Farid Basharat, although I do think Taylor Lapilus keeps it close. Gaston Bolanos as an underdog. Preston Parsons as an underdog in a very close fight. Waldo Cortes-Acosta, Phil Hawes in a true battle of the chins. Ricky Simone, Jim Miller, Manel Kape, and Magomed Ankalaev. DraftKings-wise, there are a ton of high variance volatility fights that I do think make it so you want to target them. Silva Wilson, Nolan Motta, Semelsberger Parsons, and Ferreira Hawes. I do think when it comes down to individually, in the top range, Silva, Cortes-Acosta, and Nolan are 3 fighters we're going to have to choose between them. In the mid-range, Van and Simone are who I'm getting to more often, and then it comes down to picking a side. I like Parson and Hawes, but Ferreira and Semelsberger are very attractive options themselves. Same with Ricky Simone with his takedown upside. As for underdogs, I think Bolanos has more chance to win than his line entails, and I do like Parsons and Hawes, so then it comes down to taking the shot on the other guy. The ceiling for Bunes and Motta are super high, although the floor for Lapilus is a bit higher than both of those there. So very intriguing card. Hopefully the information I've given you throughout the video is able to help you with your DraftKings lineups there. And once again, if you are playing DraftKings, check out the Ironman, DM me on Twitter, comment down below. Reignmakers wise, it's so hard considering there are so many 50-50 fights, but I like Silva, I like Cortes-Acosta, I guess I like Nolan, even though if Motta knocks him out, he's going to score better. I like Simone, I like Parsons, and I like the winner of Ferreira Hawes. Betting wise, I haven't locked up too much. I'm kind of getting the swing of it. I'm actually going to UFC 297, so I've actually jumped ahead on tape there and actually have 4 bets for that card already posted on BetMMA Tips. On this card, I like Bolanos as an underdog. I like Parsons as an underdog. I might get to Phil Hawes inside the distance if I have to. Maybe look at Jim Miller in a close fight there too, and then see whatever I can salvage violence-wise from the heavily favored to inside the distance fights. If you want all my bets, they'll be posted at Gambles Gordo either Friday night or Saturday morning. Will be posted for free with breakdowns. Be sure to check me out there on Twitter. But that's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Check me out on Twitter at Gambles Gordo. Hit the like button down below. Subscribe to the channel. I hope everyone enjoys the first fight card of 2024 and looks forward to a wild UFC 297. Check out any of my premium work on DailyFanMMA or even DM me on Twitter if you have any questions regarding any of that. I wish everyone the best of luck in all your DraftKings and betting endeavors. Let's make some money, guys.